I'm Maria Czech, and this is the Agile State of Mind. Welcome! Today, we're gonna go deeper into the estimations, planning poker, and story point topics. Have you ever done work around the house or built a new one? Construction is probably one of the best examples of how bad estimations can go, along with the weather forecast. And apparently, we are much better at relative estimation as opposed to the absolute one. Following up on the video Don't Sweat Estimations, let's talk about how to estimate in story points and unlearn the estimation in hours. And since we are already here, let's play some planning poker. Let's go! In the last episode, we were talking in general terms about the estimations and why we should relax about them. And today, let's see how we actually do them. Let's start from the beginning. Why do we estimate in the first place? In my last video, I explained 3 reasons behind estimations, and I can even think about the 4th one. 1. Arrive at a shared understanding among the team members. 2. Organize the product backlog based on value and effort. 3. Plan the upcoming work, become predictable. And a bonus 4. Slice the stories and work smaller. For more details, watch Don't Sweat Estimations. Estimation is a technique to help the team decide what they are going to work on next. It helps the product owners decide if something is even worth doing. And of course, it helps us slice the stories and work on smaller items. Now let's play a little role play game and put yourself in the shoes of a CTO of your company or a senior management member. So there is a new idea for the direction in which our product should evolve. You have some customers interested in it. So how do you plan for it? How do you calculate the return on investment? And also, how do you manage the customer expectations? They already know something new is gonna happen when it will be released. What you want is an estimation. You want to have an approximate delivery date so you can understand how much money this new investment will cost you. And tied to this subject is why we don't estimate in hours. First off, an hour of dev time doesn't equal an hour of delivery time. You have to plan for it, think about it, talk with people about it, and then start developing it. What's more, when we estimate in hours, we run a lot of risks of talking about the seniority of the developers. You know, for you, since you are 5 years in the company, it may be 2 days. But for me, it will be at least 5. And how do you deal with that? And last but not least, people get caught up even on relative estimation. Just imagine how much they get caught up on time estimations. Well, you said it will be 1 week. What are you doing here working 2nd week on it? Because estimations in hours are easily taken as a guarantee or a blood pact, rather than a simple estimation. Does that make sense? Are you convinced yet? Now let's move on to some real stuff. What are story points? They are a unit of measure. First, we need to understand that story points are abstract, relative, and about effort. Let's stick to the fact that story points are about effort. And effort does not equal time. Therefore, it should not be simplified to just hours. Effort is directly affected by complexity, but not just it. Also by dependencies, risk, uncertainty, testing, whether it is unit tests, manual tests, automated tests, repetitiveness of the work, criticality, and some other factors. So, out of all of this, what do we estimate then? Well, everything. Basically, you estimate the whole effort as user story will take up until you meet its definition of done. So how do we estimate? Important to say that the estimations are done by the people who will do the work. So Scrum Master, PO, or engineering lead have nothing to say here, unless they are coding too. Probably the most common way to estimate are the Fibonacci numbers. Each of the numbers is the sum of the previous 2 ones. So we have 1, then 1 plus 1 is 2, then 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, and then we have 8, and so on. This is a great relative measure because you can fit different items into themselves. Remember that in order to be able to estimate, you need to have conversations about user stories, hence the name. What you would typically expect is that the product owner comes with a product backlog item and explains the why behind it, the problem that we want to solve for the user, and then they explain the acceptance criteria. And whenever we think we are ready to estimate, everybody has a set of cards. I would typically have from 1 to 13. After the 13, you can basically put an infinite. It can be anything. So every team member, like in the poker game, has their set of cards. The product backlog item is explained, and at the same time, I can poker with the poker face. We show, and then we have conversations if the story points differ. This is perfect for playing face-to-face. If you are in a remote setup, there are a lot of tools online where you can do the same thing and play online. Alright, that sounds fine. But what happens if a team is new and they never ever did this before? As a Scrum Master, you can help the team prepare for estimating. There are different ways that we can learn to estimate in story points. There is the reference story one and the triangulation, which basically go hand in hand. At the beginning, it's good to have some reference stories. So whenever you start estimating, you have a reference of the different stories with different story points. Ask the team to bring a story that they already did, and that would be the easiest one they can think about. So we can directly assign to it 1 point. So 1 story point, super easy story, change something in a database, something that all the team will understand. Once you have that, then you can start thinking about other stories and saying, hey, so we have this other story, it's fairly simple too. How would you say? Is it just as simple as this one? It's like twice the complexity. And then you consider, okay, it's like 3 times the complexity. It's a 3. Now you have 2 of them. And then you can go check a new story and see with the relative one that you decided is 1 or 3, how does it relate? That's why we call it relative estimation to the other stories that we already know that are 1 or 3. And this is how you get started. Once you have some story points added and you actually consider, yeah, that was 1 and that was 3, you can do also a triangulation. When you estimate, you say, well, to me, that is a 5. Then you can do a triangulation, which means check the story of 3 and check the story of 8 and see, is that actually in between or is it more 3 or more 8? And then you can think, oh yeah, actually it's like this 8 story, so yeah, maybe we should put an 8 there. So those are different methods and they really help the teams when they start doing their estimation poker. And after the team has done a few refinements and has finished a few sprints with story points assigned to the user stories, you can start measuring your velocity as a team. Remember that velocity is a great internal tool for the team, but quite a terrible external tool for any management reporting, because it's very easy to start comparing the teams based on their velocity. Velocity is for the team, so we know how much we can do in a sprint. And with becoming better at estimating, we get to the point where we are pretty predictable. And that's all for today. I hope this video will help you to start with estimating in story points, understand the Fibonacci numbers, and why we don't estimate in hours. Plus, it will introduce some gamification. But just remember not to sweat too much about the estimations. See you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you.